Yeah, that's awesome. Um, Financiers, film financiers, are they generally more corporations or is it individuals in your experience?
Individuals are much better and easier to get, easier to manage. The key is, the phrase I used in my book was, if you're looking for investors, kind of get out of Dodge. And what I mean by that is stay out of anybody that's associated with the film business because they're usually cynical or they have their own priorities, which is okay. It's not a bad thing. They have their own projects they're dealing with. They have their own intentions. I look at it as the film business is kind of secret and special and exciting, and you're letting this person in to this world. So you don't want the person that's a producer and maybe produced a movie 10 years ago or whatever studio guy. You want the person that made $1 million, $20 million making refrigerators. You want that person because that person's world is refrigerators, and that's all he does, and that's all. Maybe he made a fortune creating refrigerators, but never did anything outside there, and secretly wants to make a movie about X Y Z. And that's the person you want to get because you're letting them. You're the conduit to let them into that film world, and you're giving that person value.
Yeah, and I can relate to that very much because, as I said, it was my dream to be in movies since I was 15. I'm 49 now, and I've been doing laser shows and entertainment from the back end of it, behind the scenes. And one of my friends came to me and said, "Can you help us out with $10,000?" And I said, "Sure." We gave the $10,000, and the movie was produced. And I tell you, it was the first time in my life that I got a buzz like I got when I saw my name up on the screen.
Yeah,
It was a really
that
cool
happens.
moment in my life.
It's a sexy investment. It's very cool for the person that made their money, selling wood to go on the golf course and say, hey, by the way, I've got a movie that I'm doing, and then suddenly there are these actors that are friends with you now, and that now you get to text and talk on the phone with, and they're these big stars, and so there's something so very exciting about it, different than investing in pig futures or whatever. You know what I mean? It's something very exciting about the movie business. So that's what you have to be the person that lets them in and let opens that door for them.
So I guess this is a bit like balancing a business and an art together.
Very much so. It's again, it is show business, and you need to look at it that way and kind of find a happy medium in the middle. You don't want to just make these. But let me say, if there's one side that you should lean more towards, it'd be the business side. People ask me all the time. What book should I read to get better as a producer besides your book? And I'll tell them read books on sales. If you had to say who would be more likely to get money for their movie, the guy that read 10 books on sales or the guy that read 10 books on producing? I'd say the guy that read 10 books on sales. Because that's you're always selling, and you're it's yourself that you're selling. So you kind of have to have that business mentality of what if I was financing the film? Well, that may not work as much because obviously you give yourself the money. So I put it when I teach the seminars. I tell them think of your parents. Maybe your parents they work their 40 years, 50 years, and they accumulated $1 million. Now you take their $1 million, and if you don't turn in profit, they're going to be on the welfare and they're going to have no money, and you have literally bankrupted them. But if you take their $1 million, could you turn it into $2 million and double their net worth? So you need to get it to where the project is that, and it's not just a belief; it's on paper, and it makes sense. And even the movies that I've done that haven't made money, each time I believed that they would, and I tried every single thing possible to get them to be profitable. And then when they finally ultimately didn't, I had to look back and say what went wrong and what can I do the next time.
So you're recommending, as in a business, having a business plan for each movie?
Without question. You need to have a business plan. It needs to be organic. It needs to be able to change, to suit which investor you're approaching, and kind of, you're adding elements to it. So when I say it needs to be organic, it's never just going to be a fix. I never tell people get a business plan and print 50 copies of it. Big mistake. You know, it's because you're going to, you know, add components and things to it, so it has to be organic and growing it all the time. But yeah, no, without question, there's a business plan. There's, you know, these are all things that you need to do. And I know the artist in many people, you know, you're a director or whatever, goes, ugh, I don't want to do all this. Well, you can not do it and make no movie, or make a movie with, you know, your DSLR that you bought and you saved up a couple grand, and, you know, but you don't have any professional cast. Or you can raise the money, and whether it's 30,000, whether it's 50,000, whether it's 500,000, whether it's 5 million, at least then you're making a professional film with money that you've raised.